My name is Ethan Miller, and even now at 34, living a life that's a world away from where I grew up, there are days the summer sun hits the pavement just right and I can smell the faint scent of chlorine on the breeze. When that happens, I'm 16 again, back in Cedar Creek, Ohio, a place where summers were endless and friendships felt like they were forged in iron. Back then, my world was small, and it revolved around two people, Leo and Mark. We were the classic trio, an inseparable unit since elementary school. Leo was the adventurous one, always pushing the limits, the first to climb the highest tree or jump off the high dive at the community pool. I was the planner, the one who tried to think things through, the glue that often held our wild ideas together. And Mark was the cautious one. He was our anchor, the guy who worried about us getting hurt or getting in trouble. We were a perfect, balanced triangle, or so I thought. Our headquarters was the Cedar Creek Community Pool. It was a sprawling concrete oasis with a diving board that slapped the water with a rhythmic thwack all day long, and a concession stand that sold the best cherry slushies known to man. That summer, the summer everything changed, felt different from the start. We had just gotten our driver's licenses, which gave us a new taste of freedom, but it also started to highlight the small cracks in our friendship. Leo and I lived for the deep end of the pool, for the thrill of treading water where our feet couldn't touch the bottom, for the games of Marco Polo that spanned its entire length. Mark, however, hated the deep end. He was never a strong swimmer, and a childhood incident he never fully explained left him with a deep-seated fear of water over his head. We always tried to be inclusive. We'd spend hours in the shallow end with him, splashing around, playing chicken, doing everything we could to keep the trio together. But the call of the deep end was always there for me and Leo. That particular afternoon was a scorcher, the kind of Ohio day where the air is thick and heavy and the only relief is cool water. The three of us were there like always. Leo and I had just swum a few laps in the deep end and were floating on our backs, looking up at the perfect, cloudless blue sky. Mark was sitting on the edge of the pool deck, his legs dangling in the shallow end, a frown plastered on his face. We swam over to him. "Come on, Mark," Leo said, splashing a little water his way. "We'll stay in the middle where you can still touch. It's too hot to just sit there." Mark just shook his head, his lips a thin line. "You guys always do this. You just go off and leave me here." I paddled closer, trying to be the peacemaker. "We're not leaving you, man. We were just cooling off." "We're back now. What do you want to do?" But he was already in a mood. He stood up, dripping water onto the hot concrete, which sizzled and evaporated instantly. "It's always about what you two want to do," he snapped. "You hang out with Leo way more than me. It's like I'm not even here." This was new. Mark had always been quiet, but he'd never been accusatory like this. It felt like it came out of nowhere. Leo, never one to back down, treaded water aggressively. "What are you talking about? We're all here right now. We asked you to come in." Mark's face was turning red, a mixture of sunburn and anger. He scanned the pool deck and his eyes landed on a stack of brightly colored flutterboards near the lifeguard stand. He stomped over, grabbed a bright orange one, and turned back to us. "You want to hang out in the deep end so bad? Fine." He screamed, and with a grunt, he hurled the flutterboard at us with all his might. It wasn't a playful toss. It was thrown with real force. I saw it coming and ducked underwater, but Leo wasn't as fast. The hard plastic edge of the board caught him square in the back with a sickening thud. He cried out in pain and surprise, sinking under the water for a second before coming up sputtering, his face a mask of shock. That was it. The line had been crossed. The friendly summer atmosphere evaporated, replaced by something cold and ugly. I swam to Leo, who was rubbing a rapidly forming red welt on his back. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on Mark. We both hauled ourselves out of the pool, water streaming from our shorts, our bare feet slapping on the concrete as we advanced on him. "What is wrong with you?" I yelled. "You could have seriously hurt him." Mark's face went from angry to terrified in a heartbeat. He saw the look in our eyes, the fury of a friendship betrayed. He didn't say a word. He just turned and ran. He sprinted through the gate, not even stopping to grab his towel or his shoes, and disappeared down the street, a pathetic, cowardly retreat. Leo and I stood there, dripping and fuming, the laughter and splashes of the pool suddenly sounding a million miles away. Our perfect triangle was broken. Our world had been shaken, and a new person had emerged from the shell of our old friend. A nemesis. That night, the anger was still burning in my gut. I felt a deep, personal betrayal. We had been friends our whole lives. How could he do that? How could he physically hurt one of us and then just run away? I needed to hit back. I couldn't let it go. So I sat down at my family's bulky desktop computer, listened to the screech and hiss of the dial-up modem connecting to the internet, and opened my Hotmail account. I knew Mark's biggest insecurity wasn't his swimming. It was his relationship with his girlfriend, Sarah. She was popular, pretty, and a year older than us. Everyone, including Mark himself, seemed to wonder what she saw in him. He was constantly paranoid that she would leave him. That was his weak spot. So I typed out an email. It was juvenile, stupid, and fueled by pure teenage rage. I didn't threaten him. I just mocked him. I wrote about how Sarah was too good for a coward who throws things at his friends and runs away. I said that one day she'd wake up and realize she was dating a spineless little kid and find a real man. I hit send, feeling a grim satisfaction. It was a stupid email, but in my mind it was a proportional response. He hurt my friend physically, I hurt his feelings with words. We were even. The problem was solved, or so I thought. 2 days later, during third period history class, the classroom door opened and the school secretary stood there. "Ethan Miller," she said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "The vice principal needs to see you in his office." Every head turned to look at me. A summons to Mr. Henderson's office was never good news. My stomach twisted into a knot. I walked down the long, linoleum hallway, the sound of my own footsteps seeming impossibly loud. I had no idea what this could be about. Mr. Henderson's office was small and smelled like stale coffee and lemon polish. He was a large man with a permanent frown etched onto his face. But he wasn't alone. Sitting in the chair opposite his desk was a uniformed police officer, a man I recognized as Officer Davis, who sometimes directed traffic after school. My blood ran cold. "Sit down, Ethan," Mr. Henderson said, not bothering with pleasantries. I sat, my hands suddenly clammy. Officer Davis cleared his throat. "We're here to talk about an email you sent a few days ago to Mark Peterson." My mind reeled. An email? How did they even know about that? Mark must have shown it to his parents, the ultimate coward's move. "The school has a zero-tolerance policy on cyberbullying, Ethan," Mr. Henderson chimed in, his voice dripping with disappointment. Cyberbullying. The term was relatively new back then, but I knew what it meant. It sounded serious, official. "It wasn't bullying," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He threw a flutterboard at my friend. He hit him in the back hard. I was just getting back at him." I looked from Mr. Henderson to Officer Davis, expecting some kind of understanding. I saw none. Officer Davis leaned forward, his expression unyielding. "What Mark did at the pool is a separate issue. What we have here is a written record of you harassing and intimidating another student online. His parents are considering pressing charges. Charges? For an email. The injustice of it all hit me like a physical blow. But what he did was worse," I pleaded, my voice rising. "He physically assaulted my friend. Did you even talk to Leo? Did you see the bruise on his back? Don't you care about my side of the story at all?" Mr. Henderson held up a hand. "Your tone is not helping your case, young man. We are dealing with your actions right now. The fact is, you used the internet to attack another student. That is a serious offense." They didn't care. They hadn't investigated. They had taken Mark's story, the story of the aggressor, as gospel, and now I was the villain. All my frustration, all my anger over Mark's betrayal boiled over. "This is unbelievable," I spat out, the words tasting like acid. "You don't care about the truth. You just care about covering yourselves. This whole thing is a joke." That was a mistake. Mr. Henderson's eyes narrowed. "I don't appreciate being mouthed off to, Ethan. Your complete lack of remorse for your actions is noted. You're suspended for 3 days, effective immediately. Your parents have been called." I was escorted to the office to wait for my mom. The walk of shame past the other students, the whispers, the stares, it was humiliating. Mark had not only betrayed me and hurt my friend, but he had also successfully manipulated the entire system to punish me for his own actions. He had made the problem 1,000 times worse. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was seeing red. Sitting at home for 3 days, stewing in the injustice of it all, I realized my first attempt at revenge had been a pathetic failure. It was weak. It was short-sighted. Mark had played chess while I was playing checkers. He had used the adult world against me, and I had fallen right into his trap. My parents were disappointed. Leo felt guilty that I was in trouble for defending him, and I was the school pariah for a week. The original problem wasn't solved. It had grown into a monster. I had hit my low point. I was branded a bully, punished for someone else's crime, and my so-called friend was getting away with everything, probably laughing about it with Sarah. That was when I decided that my next attempt at solving this problem would be different. It wouldn't be a quick, angry email. It would be cold, calculated, and it would target the one thing he cared about more than anything else in the world. I wasn't just going to get even. I was going to dismantle his life. And for that, I was going to need help. My other best friend, Alex, wasn't part of the pool trio. He was a different kind of friend, the kind you stay up all night with online, playing video games and talking about code. Alex was a genius with computers, a ghost in the machine who knew his way around the hidden corners of the early internet. He thought school was a waste of time and that the real world existed in lines of code and network protocols. When I told him the whole story, from the flutterboard to the suspension, he didn't just sympathize. His eyes lit up with a familiar, mischievous spark. "They suspended you for that?" he said, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Man, they have no idea what real cyberbullying looks like. We have to teach them a lesson." And so, the plan for my real revenge began to take shape in the flickering glow of his computer monitor in his cluttered basement bedroom. Our first move was to create our weapon. We opened up Hotmail and created a new account. We needed a persona, a fictional girl who would be Mark's dream. We named her Jessica. We decided Jessica was from a neighboring town, so he couldn't just try to meet her. She was smart, funny, and into all the same bands he was. We found a photo online from some obscure European modeling site of a girl who was pretty but not so impossibly beautiful that it would seem fake. This was our bait. The first few emails were subtle. Jessica accidentally emailed Mark, pretending she thought it was her cousin's address. Mark predictably corrected her. Jessica then replied, apologizing but adding a little compliment, something like, "Oops, sorry. By the way, I like your email address, it's clever." It was a tiny hook, but it was enough. We slowly, painstakingly built a rapport. We learned his class schedule and had Jessica email him during his study hall asking what he was up to. We talked about music, movies, and the boring life in our small Ohio towns. For weeks, we cultivated this online friendship. Mark, starved for attention and validation, ate it up. He started telling Jessica things. He complained about his friends, meaning me and Leo, and how we had turned on him for no reason. He talked about his girlfriend, Sarah, saying he loved her but that she didn't really get him like Jessica did. Every email he sent was a small victory, another piece of ammunition we were stockpiling. But he wasn't taking the final bait. He was loyal to Sarah, or at least too scared to cheat. No matter how much Jessica flirted, he would always pull back, saying he had a girlfriend. It was frustrating. We were putting in all this work, and he was still being the loyal boyfriend. We needed to up the game. "We need to control the conversation," Alex said one night, his face illuminated by the screen. "We can't just talk to him, we need to be him." That's when he came up with the masterstroke. Alex was going to hack into Mark's Hotmail account. It was surprisingly easy. Back then, security questions were laughably simple, things like, "What is your mother's maiden name?" Or "What was the name of your first pet?" We knew the answers to all of them. Within 10 minutes we were in. We had complete control of his digital life. First, we locked him out. Alex changed the password and the security questions. Mark would try to log in and find himself completely blocked from his own account. This was step 1, create chaos and confusion. Step 2 was the masterpiece. We chose our moment perfectly, a Tuesday afternoon during our 5th period computer class. The whole class, including Mark, was in the computer lab, supposedly working on a research paper. The lab was a relic, with bulky, cream-colored monitors and the constant hum of cooling fans. I sat at a computer in the back corner with Alex next to me. Mark was a few rows ahead, looking increasingly frustrated as he tried and failed to log into his email, muttering to himself about the password not working. It was time. Alex opened 2 browser windows. In one, he logged into Jessica's account. In the other, he logged into Mark's now hijacked account. Then he began to have a conversation with himself. As Jessica, he wrote an email to Mark, a desperate final plea. "Mark, I can't do this anymore. I'm falling for you and it's killing me that you're with Sarah. You have to choose, it's her or me." Then, as Mark, he replied from the compromised account. The reply was devastating. Alex wrote, "You're right, I've been living a lie. Sarah and I are comfortable, but it's not real love. What I feel for you is different. It's you, Jessica. It's always been you. I'm going to end it with her this week. I promise. Then we can finally be together." He continued the exchange, back and forth, creating a short but utterly convincing narrative of a secret emotional affair culminating in a decision to leave his long-term girlfriend. Each email was a nail in the coffin. While Alex typed, my job was to watch Mark. He was getting more and more agitated, clicking his mouse furiously, even trying to reset his password and failing. He had no idea that just a few feet away, his entire romantic life was being systematically destroyed. Once the conversation was complete, Alex took screenshots of the entire exchange. We made sure to capture the dates, the times, and the full email addresses. It was undeniable proof. We printed out the screenshots on the lab's noisy dot matrix printer. The evidence felt heavy in my hands, like a death warrant. The final part of the plan required stealth. We knew which locker was Sarah's. After school, when the hallways were mostly empty, we walked over to her locker. My heart was pounding in my chest. This felt different from sending an angry email. This was real. This was going to cause actual, tangible pain. For a moment, I hesitated. Was this too much? I looked at the printed pages in my hand, the fake words of betrayal, and then I thought of Leo's bruised back, of Mr. Henderson's smug face, of the 3 days of humiliation I had endured. My hesitation vanished. I slipped the folded papers through the vents in her locker door. They fluttered down inside, a quiet little bomb waiting to be discovered. Then we walked away. There was nothing left to do but wait. A month went by. It was the longest month of my life. Nothing happened. I started to think maybe our plan had failed. Maybe Sarah found the papers and confronted Mark, and he somehow convinced her it was a prank. Maybe she never even saw them. School life had returned to a tense normal. I avoided Mark, he avoided me. It was a cold war fought in the hallways and the cafeteria. Leo and I were tighter than ever, bonded by the shared betrayal. I was beginning to accept that my grand revenge was a dud. Then one crisp autumn afternoon it happened. I was walking out of school with Alex when he suddenly grabbed my arm, his eyes wide. "Dude," he whispered, his voice full of a giddy excitement. "You have to come see this, right now." He pulled me toward the front of the school where a large circle of students was gathered near the flagpole. In the center of the circle, like gladiators in an arena, were Mark and Sarah. And in Sarah's trembling hand was a crumpled stack of papers, our screenshots. Sarah's face was blotchy and tear-streaked, but her eyes were burning with rage. "How could you?" she screamed, her voice cracking. She shook the papers at him. "How could you do this to me? I read it all. It's you, Jessica. It's always been you." "Who is she, Mark? Who is this girl you've been emailing behind my back?" Mark looked completely shell-shocked. He was pale, his mouth hanging open as he stared at the words he'd never written. "Sarah, I swear that's not me," he pleaded, his voice desperate. "I told you my email was hacked. I haven't been able to get into it for a month. Someone is setting me up." It was the truth, but it was the most unbelievable truth in the world. It sounded like the lamest, most pathetic excuse a cheater could possibly invent. The crowd of students around them was starting to snicker. "Hacked," Sarah laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "That is the best you can come up with? You think I'm that stupid? I loved you, Mark. I trusted you." Her voice dropped to a low, cold whisper. "We're done. It's over. I never want to see you again." With that, she threw the papers at his feet. They scattered in the wind, his fake words of betrayal dancing around his ankles. He reached out for her as she turned to walk away, but she shrugged him off without a second glance. The circle of students began to break apart, laughing and talking amongst themselves, dissecting the drama they had just witnessed. Mark was left standing alone. He looked down at the papers, then looked up at the departing back of the girl he loved. And then he just crumpled. He dropped to his knees on the grass, right there in front of everyone who was left. He put his head in his hands and started to sob, not quiet little tears, but huge, racking, guttural sobs of absolute despair. It was the sound of a world ending. Alex and I stood at the edge of the scene, watching it all unfold. My revenge was complete. It was more successful than I could have ever imagined. I had taken his most prized possession, his relationship, and shattered it into a million pieces using his own digital identity. He had been publicly humiliated, his heart broken, his lies exposed, except they weren't his lies. They were mine. I expected to feel a surge of triumph, a wave of pure satisfaction, and I did for a moment. I saw the face of the coward who had hurt my friend and then used the system to punish me, and I felt a cold, hard sense of justice. But as I watched him cry, really cry in front of all those people, another feeling started to creep in. It wasn't guilt, not exactly. It was more of a detached recognition of the sheer destructive power we had unleashed. We hadn't just gotten even. We had waged a scorched earth campaign. Looking back now from the vantage point of a 34-year-old man, the memory is still crystal clear. That day was the end of our childhood. The friendship between me, Leo, and Mark was obviously gone forever. I never spoke to Mark again. I saw him in the halls at school, a ghost of his former self, and we would just look through each other. My friendship with Leo was solidified in fire, and my bond with Alex became one of a shared, dark secret. The new normal was a world where I understood that justice wasn't something that was given to you by people in authority. Sometimes, if you wanted it, you had to take it. And taking it could be a brutal, ugly business. It changed me. It forged a piece of my personality that is fiercely loyal to the people I care about, but also capable of a certain ruthlessness that I don't often let people see. I learned that summer that revenge is a complicated thing. It's not always sweet. Sometimes it's just effective. It solved my problem. It rebalanced the scales, but it left a scar not just on Mark, but on me. Years later, I was back in Cedar Creek for the holidays, and I ran into Sarah at a local coffee shop. She was married, had a couple of kids. We made small talk, and then there was this awkward pause. She looked at me and said, "You know, for years I thought Mark cheated on me, but a while back he reached out and explained again how his email was hacked. He was so insistent. And I started to wonder, was that you, Ethan?" I just looked at her, at this woman whose teenage heart I had helped break with a string of lies. I could have denied it. I could have pretended to be shocked. But in that moment, I just gave a small, slow nod. Her expression didn't change to anger. It was more like a sad, tired understanding. "I thought so," she said quietly. "He was never the same after that. I hope it was worth it." Was it worth it? Standing there in that coffee shop, I thought about the fury of that 16-year-old boy who felt so betrayed and powerless. To him, it was absolutely worth it. It was everything. But to the 34-year-old man I had become, the answer was a lot more complicated. I had won, but I had also become the very thing I despised, a bully who used hidden, unfair tactics to hurt someone. Mark threw a flutterboard in a moment of stupid, childish anger. I responded with a cold, calculated campaign of psychological warfare. Maybe in the end, the scales I thought I had balanced were never really level to begin with.